Pure devotee simply depends on the Lord's mercy, and when the Lord is pleased, he can see him face to face. The Lord is unseen even by demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. By calling on the Supreme Lord, the priests of Nabi Maharaj proved themselves unintelligent. Nonetheless, the Lord came out of his causeless mercy. All of them therefore wanted to be excused by the Lord. Worship of the Supreme Lord for material gain is not approved by authorities as stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.16. Does anybody know that verse? 7.16. Chaturveda bhajanti mam jana sukritinor jana artho jigyashur artartha gyani cha bharatarshava. O best among the Bharats, Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Initiation into bhakti begins when one is in a distressed condition or in want of money, or when one is inquisitive to understand the absolute truth. Nonetheless, people who approach the Supreme Lord in this way are not actually devotees. Okay, yeah, they are accepted as pious, sukritina, due to their inquiring about the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing the various activities and engagements of the Lord, such people unnecessarily disturb the Lord for material gain. However, the Lord is so kind that even though disturbed, he fulfills the desires of such beggars. The pure devotee is anyabhila sitasunya. He has no motive behind his worship. He is not conducted by the influence of Maya in the form of karma or jnana. The pure devotee is always prepared to execute the order of the Lord without personal consideration. The Ritvija, the priests at the sacrifice, knew very well the distinction between karma and bhakti, and because they considered themselves under the influence of karma, fruit of activity, they begged the Lord's pardon. They knew that the Lord had been invited to come for some paltry reason. Om Agana Tamarandasya Gananjana Slakaya Chakshur Militamina Tasma Shigrivin Maha Makam Kroti Vachalam Pangam Lagaya Tigrim Yakripa Tamaham Vande Shigrim Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sadigora Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. O Lord, you perform many wonderful activities. Our only aim was to acquire a son by performing this great sacrifice. Therefore, our intelligence is not very sharp. We are not experienced in ascertaining life's goal. By inviting you to this negligible sacrifice for some material motive, we have certainly committed a great offence at your lotus feet. Therefore, O Lord of Lords, please excuse our offence because of your causeless mercy and equal mind. So interesting here that the Srila Prabhupada was making a point here. Let's see if I can find it. Not knowing the various activities and engagements of the Lord, such people unnecessarily disturb the Lord for material gain. So the Lord is enjoying his pastimes in the spiritual world, and then some rebellious living entities in the material world are troubling him to come and fulfill their material desires. We see in Bhagavad Gita, the Suridam Sarvabhutanam, that the Supreme Lord is the friend of all living entities. He is our eternal friend. So even though the Lord has no interest, no business in the material world, he has no business, no interest in satisfying people's material desires, still because he is the eternal well-wishing friend of the living entities, then as mentioned in Ishopanishad, he has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. Of course, that's dependent on their karma as well. Sometimes the Lord may be extra kind upon someone and give them some benediction. But generally, the Lord lets the law of karma run the show in the material world. Occasionally, he may decide for some reason to appear, and he may have some purpose. And usually, his appearance is scheduled, but sometimes, and in this case, Lord Rishabdev is about to appear as a result of this. Although they may have some motivation, the Lord has his motivation, which is to benefit the living entities. So you just imagine, sometimes if you're doing, devotees, they sell Prabhupada's book door to door, and if you go around at a certain time, say like between 5:30 and 6:30, then people have been working, they just get back from work, and they're sitting down to their evening meal, and then they want to watch the television, and then someone comes to the door, and sometimes they appear very disturbed that you've interfered with their enjoyment. So this is Krishna's enjoyment is on a much higher level, and he has no interest. So sometimes we get that too at a small scale, that we're interrupting people's material enjoyment. And sometimes the Lord will do that too. He'll descend in order to annihilate the miscreants and to benedict the devotees, or to paritranaya sadhunam, to uplift the devotees and to give them his mercy so that they can return back home. So the devotees do this. And this is the duty. We'll find this also, that Narada Muni, he was similarly doing such things. He's traveling all over the world, and he's giving this message of Krishna to everybody, Krishna consciousness. He's preaching all over the world. So we're trying to follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni, of the Guru Parampara, by going out of our way to bring Krishna consciousness to others. And this is the surest way to get Krishna's mercy. If we go out of our way to give somebody Krishna, or at least we attempt to do it, like Vaisheshkava was making a comment that primarily book distribution or any type of preaching, it's for our purification. And whoever we can benefit in the course of doing that, then that's for their benefit. Our benefit is to go and try to do it. And therefore Krishna says we don't have to be attached to the result. We just have to do our duty. And Krishna explains that to Arjuna. He says, declare it boldly that my devotee will never perish. And he said that because Krishna, he says, they won't believe me. I've given my word so many times and broke it. But when Krishna breaks his word, it's because, first and foremost, which is also contained within that verse, that my devotee will never perish, that Krishna will protect his devotee regardless of what his own promise has been. Just like in Kurukshetra, we hear that Krishna vowed he wouldn't take up arms against the other side. He would simply drive Arjuna's chariot. And Bhishma Dev, he was determined to show the Lord's glory, to demonstrate how the Lord will give up his own promise to protect his devotee. He'll give up his own reputation. So this is how amazing it is to be a devotee of the Lord, knowing that the Lord will always be there regardless of anything, if we're fully dependent on the Lord. If we're not dependent on the Lord, we won't experience that. Because we are still somewhat keeping some kind of false sense of security within the material world. So therefore we never really get convinced of the security of taking shelter of Krishna. But when we do that, sometimes we may feel vulnerable because we're in the material world. It's a very dangerous place. Padam, padam, yadvi, padam. In every way we can be vulnerable, physically, mentally, financially, spiritually. There's so many distractions, so many bogus philosophies. And everything is based on desire. If we desire to be a pure devotee, then there's nothing can stop us. But if we desire something less, then Maya has got unlimited options for us, which will make us feel like this is okay. I can settle at this level, but it's not a level, it's a distraction. So Krishna consciousness is an uphill climb, and it's not that we just achieve something and then we can relax. Okay, now that I've been initiated, or now that I've passed my Bhakti Shastri, then I've made a certain grade. It's not like that. It's just like sometimes you have, in the armed forces, you have some specialist elite forces, and they have to train very rigorously to be accepted in amongst these forces. And then once they get accepted, that's just the beginning. There's continual training. So initiation is just the beginning. It means that now the spiritual master has formally announced that he's going to instruct us, and we've formally declared that we're going to follow the instructions of this spiritual master. That's all. It's just like sometimes you go to get a job, and we have perhaps to go through some different interviews or training to get to the job, and then the job starts. Initiation means that the job is starting. Whether it's first initiation or second initiation or sannyasa initiation, the job is continual, the training is continual. Maya's presence is always there. In the material world, Maya dominates. That's why it's called Durgadam. Durga means difficulty, and Maya's position is that she puts the living entities into much difficulty. So this is the result of their ignorance of Krishna. But by Krishna's mercy, then he comes and he gives the living entities a chance to go back to him. Sometimes he comes by request, and sometimes he comes simply by his own free will. He can come and go anytime. He is not bound by anyone or anything. The only thing which bounds Krishna is the love of his devotees. So if we want to learn to love Krishna, then that love is tested. Every day it will be tested. Are we determined to prove that by doing something? So Prabhupada says that devotion means it has to be demonstrated, not that we just go in front of the deities and get all sentimental, or not that we give some donation to the temple and we say, oh yeah, this is given with much love, my 10 pence. That's not really love. Love is not holding back. Love is sometimes we have to put ourselves into the unknown, the uncertain situation, which appears like, well, I haven't got a clue what's going to go on here. We see Prabhupada did this. When he arrived in America, he was saying, I don't know why you brought me here, but you must have some purpose. So please make me your puppet. Use me as your puppet and make me dance as you like. So Prabhupada is showing this mood. And because he's a pure devotee, he has full confidence. So he's showing us how we can do that. And by doing that, many of Prabhupada's disciples also imbibed that mood, and they just threw themselves in the deep end. So of course, we should also be careful. We shouldn't just be foolish and, like, say you have no collateral and you just decide you're going to buy the biggest building in Glasgow and open up a temple, and you don't have any devotees and you don't have any money. If you don't really have the faith to pull that off, then it'll become a disaster. So we have to be sensible as well. But at the same time, we shouldn't think that, like the frog in the well, that the only world which exists is what I see with the purview of my senses, because Krishna is beyond the range of the senses. So if we want to get Krishna's association, get Krishna's mercy, we have to put ourselves into that category as well, where we have faith in something which is beyond us. If not, all that you've got is what is limited to you, to your perception. So sometimes we think it's quite humorous, this frog in the well example. The frog is in the well, and he's lived there all his life, and another frog pops over, and he says, oh, where did you come from? I came from outside. He said, oh, what's it like out there? He says, well, I came from, some big lake. And he says, or some ocean. Oh, is it like my well? Oh, it's much bigger. Is it twice as big? No, much bigger than that. Each time he says, is it twice as big, 10 times as big? Then his air sac puffs up as if to demonstrate how much bigger it can be than his well, and finally it bursts. So this is that we also sometimes can be like that we can't perceive or put faith in anything beyond what we see, and that limits us. Even though someone who have more experience, or is coming from higher knowledge, or who has made some more surrender, we have to be careful that we don't just limit ourselves to only believing in what we can see also. Otherwise, we don't get to learn anything. We don't get to expand our faith in Krishna consciousness or knowledge. Because Krishna is beyond the control of the material world, then so many things which are maybe even illogical can take place. So these devotees were feeling that they had offended the Lord because they were simply wanting some material benefit. And when they got the Lord's darshan, then they became very much aware, just like Dhruva Maharaj also. He had a material desire. He was feeling hurt by the harsh comments of his stepmother, and he wanted to show them that, well, you think that you're high and mighty, you think you are above me, but I'm going to perform some austerities and I'm going to get a kingdom greater than any of you. And he succeeded, actually. But when he got the darshan of Lord Vishnu, first of all, he was stunned. He couldn't say anything because of the attractiveness of the Supreme Lord. And then Lord Vishnu touched Dhruva's head with his conch shell, and then he spoke some wonderful prayers, which you can read in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Dhruva Maharaj says, I've been looking for some pieces of broken glass, but I've found a priceless gem. So that happens. It's, according to this verse, Chatur Vidha Bhajanti Mam. 4 types of people worship me, Krishna says. Okay, so there are 4 types. Anyone like to mention one of them? Distressed. That's right, that's one. Another? Yeah, someone's desiring wealth. And 2 more to go. Inquisitive. And yeah. So what's the difference between inquisitive and searching for the absolute truth?
Curiosity. And yours, wants to go deeper.
Okay. Ragnar?
It's the same.
Same? How is it the same?
Same as Vrindavan.
Huh?
Same as Vrindavan.
Oh, I thought you meant they were the same, because to some people actually it sounds the same. It's like one's inquisitive and one's in search of absolute truth. So that's true. It's someone may be inquisitive, but someone's actually searching. They become frustrated with the material world. So Prabhupada explains in the 3rd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, that the living entity, desiring to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord, comes to the material world which the Lord has created. It's created for them. Interesting, Srila Prabhupada was once asked by a devotee, why did the Supreme Lord create the material world? And he said, he never you created it. By your desire, you created it. So it wasn't there for him if he didn't want it. So in this way, we can't actually blame Krishna for anything which happens to us in the material world. Sometimes people like to blame God. They wanted to come here, each and every individual soul wanted to come here, knowing that this is the place they're coming to. Just like Prabhupada gave this, or BBC Pragosh gave this example, there was one devotee went to a place which was infested by, I think it was malaria, or what was the other one? Cholera. I think it was maybe cholera, some disease, and he was suffering from it. And then Prabhupada said that was your foolishness. You knew this area was high risk of getting infection, and you went there. That was your foolishness. So he wasn't. He was telling the devotee, don't think you can just put yourself in danger, and Krishna is your servant to come and protect you simply because you've been foolish. You know, Krishna has given you intelligence to avoid danger. So it's not that I'll just put myself in any kind of danger and Krishna will come. We're not on that level just yet. And if you look at the example of the cowherd boys going into the mouth of Agasura, they were walking in and they were saying, oh, it appears to be some terrible demon. And but they were interested to find out what was going on. So the tongue of the demon was lying out like some path, and it was just an adventure for them. And they thought, well, let's go in here. And if it is a big demon, Krishna will save us, like he did so with so many other demons. And even if he doesn't, nothing can harm Krishna. So they weren't even afraid of their own safety. It wasn't that they were thinking, we'll go in here and Krishna will be forced to save us. That wasn't their mood. Their mood was like, they were free from fear already. And their only thing was, well, even if it harms us, it won't harm Krishna. So that's different than we put ourselves in some situation, say, okay, where are you, Krishna? But the Lord, so it's the material world is a very dangerous place. We come here, it's created for our enjoyment. But in trying to enjoy it, Krishna's Prabhupada says in the same purport that although Krishna made this for us to enjoy separately, we try to enjoy it and we become frustrated in our attempt because it's an incompatible situation. We are of a higher energy, we are spiritual, we are eternal, and the material world is temporary, always changing. The only thing which is permanent in the material world is change. You can always depend on that. That's constant, is change. We look at our face in the mirror and we don't see that it's changing. It's imperceptible. This is the imperceptible effect of time. You don't see the world is changing, the planet is changing, our body is changing, the place we live in. As soon as you buy something new, like say you decide, okay, I'm going to go and buy a brand new car because I've bought so many old bangers and I'm always having to fix them. So let me buy a brand new one. But there's no guarantee that the brand new one won't find itself in the garage any day. I've seen that. I used to work with these things, and even new cars, sometimes you would get what you call a Friday car or a Monday car, which meant that people have been off all weekend, enjoying themselves, and the last thing they want to do on Monday morning is go to work. So they have no interest in working, so they don't put attention to it. Same with Friday, they just want to finish up and get away to enjoy. So they'd say the best one to get is a Wednesday car. Of course, there's no knowing when a car was built. But as soon as you buy something new, say you do that, and then as soon as you get it, you buy a car, brand new car, and say you spend £10,000, £20,000 on a car. As soon as you drive it out of the showroom, then it depreciates by like 10, 15, 20%. If you turn it around the roundabout and go straight back in and try to sell it back, then you'll be losing at least £5,000 straight away, the depreciation. And every mile it clocks on it, you're depreciating. And every time you use it, even if you don't use it, if you think, I'll just keep it in the garage and it'll always be pristine, then the effect of time will take its toll on it because things will start to rust, mold will come in. Sometimes people do this, they collect items, like you get car collectors, and they put them in like an airbag, a vacuum bag, sorry, a huge big vacuum bag. They lay it out on the ground and drive it on top, and they zip it over and they suck all the air out. But what kind of enjoyment is that? You know, anytime you want to look at it, you've got to take this off and have a look at it, and you've got to keep electricity on to. And people have like warehouses full of them. One time I met one old guy in Blackpool. I was doing Sankirtan, and it was just when I'd finished, and we had a big American estate car because you could get loads of books and loads of devotees in it. It was a 9-seater with a huge big boot, so it was a monster for distributing loads of books on the street. And he says, "Oh, you know, I'd like to buy it off you." And so I phoned up the temple And he said he wanted to swap it and give us some money. So he took us to the warehouse that he had, and it had dozens of old American cars, huge big things, iconic things. Interesting to look at, but I was looking inside them and thinking they're mouldy. It's just the mode of ignorance is just setting in. And this old guy, he must have been late 60s, early 70s back then. And I was thinking it was so sad that he had a lot of money, obviously, to maintain a big building and maintain all these cars, buy them. And he had a lot of money. But actually, it was so sad to see that the thing which is interested in him is just deteriorating before his eyes. So, of course, we didn't do any deal because I thought there was nothing there which was interesting to us. And that's the same for anyone who tries to maintain something material world. They build a brand new house. But as soon as it's built, then what happens? Things start to go wrong. You're using it. And even if you don't use anything in the material world, every living entity wants to use it. As soon as you've got money, someone wants to get it off you. As soon as you've got some property, somebody wants to try to trick you out of it or somehow or another get some money out of you. So there's no possibility of anything constant in this material world. Everything is deteriorating. So the mode of passion that is there in the living entity is to want to create something, but as soon as you create it, then the destruction will come in due course of time. And even what we create, what is the value of it? It's insignificant, really, in the bigger picture. It's like we have this famous painting, the Mona Lisa, and it's got such a big fame, but apparently it's quite a small painting. Does anybody know what size it is? It's not like some huge big thing, it's only like some small thing, and it's considered to be the most famous painting for some reason. But in due course of time, it will just become insignificant, it will disappear. You know, how many other things have false values been put on before we're not even aware of now? How many civilizations came around and we're not even aware of them now? Perhaps there's a few foundations of some building which was there thousands of years ago, and likely people were thinking it was very significant and that they were very important, and somebody was ruling and they were feeling like a god, and people would treat them like that out of their ignorance. And still this is going on. Celebrities, politicians, they're treated like gods, but they actually they're subject to the four defects. So what are the four defects? First of all, we're illusioned, right? We have imperfect senses. What else?
Mistakes.
Commit mistakes. Tendency to cheat. And illusions, yeah. So we have imperfect senses, and because of that, we're illusioned. And then because of that, we have a tendency to commit mistakes. And sometimes we try to cover up those mistakes, so we have a tendency to cheat. So there is some kind of order there. We have imperfect senses, which means we're illusioned. And we make mistakes due to that illusion. And then we cheat to cover over our mistakes, or to try to make out that we're not illusioned. So a devotee is honest, they think, yeah, I'm in Maya. A devotee is not offended. If someone says, oh, Prabhu, you're in Maya, you don't take offense. You think, oh, thank goodness, somebody's going to tell me I'm in Maya. Maybe there's a chance I can get out of this material world. But we don't do it in such a harsh, judgmental way. It has to be done with some care. Not we just do it because someone's annoying us, so we're going to point out their faults. We can all do that. And Prabhupada says that you criticize me, I criticize you. Where does it go? It was Harikesh, when he was a Swami, he gave this interesting class. He said, if someone calls you a fool, then they're actually your friend. But if we're proud with someone calls us a fool, then we think this person's my enemy. And we see that the humble devotees would be like this. Prabhupada, he said, I'm number one fool. He wasn't thinking that he's very intelligent, he's very smart. and that he's got it all sussed. He wasn't thinking like that at all. He was thinking, I'm so foolish. And because the devotee's got this humility, then the Lord will work through that person. Then that person gets the protection of the Lord. So we can't stand proud and declare, we want God to be present in our life. I've done so much for you. Where are you now? It shouldn't be like that. It's the mood that devotees should be developing is that you're free to do as you wish in the Shikshastakam. Lord Chaitanya says that you can handle me roughly in your embrace if you want. You're free to do anything and everything, but you're still my worshipful Lord. So these prayers of Lord Chaitanya and Shikshastakam, these are the guidelines for us. We should be aiming towards that. We may not feel like that at this point in time, but that's what we're aiming to. That whatever the Lord wants to do, that we have no choice but to accept. And when we have that, then we have the full protection of the Lord. So there's many different types, these 4 types of people who approach Krishna. But even Krishna, it says Sarvakama, what's it? Sarvakama, no, I forget that verse now. Do you know that one? Akama, Sarvakama, Va, Mokshakama, Udaradi. I think there's a third line, and then Tivrina Bhakti Yogina, is it? Whatever it is, and the English is easy to remember on that one, is that akama, which means without desire, sarvakama, whether one has all desires, whatever your desire may be, then we should just approach Krishna anyway. So even these devotees were feeling they defended Krishna by approaching him. They were better to do that than to approach some demigod, because as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, then Krishna, he's actually the only benefactor. Whatever benedictions the demigods can give, actually that is coming from Krishna anyway. So better we just go directly to Krishna. Because in due course, even though we may approach Krishna with the wrong purpose, we'll become purified by that. And that example is here for these priests. They get purified by seeing the Lord, the river Marge also. So we shouldn't think, I have to be a pure devotee before I can approach. Like someone once said, that I can't continue chanting because my chanting is offensive. So we have to practice. Practice makes perfect. We're not. So there's 3 different stages. It's not that we'll go from offensive to pure stage all of a sudden. We have to go through the clearing stage, and that takes a bit of hard work. Because some things we're quite happy to give up. We can see clearly this is causing me misery, and I've had enough of it, I'll give it up. And then as we continue with the process, other things come up which you realise, I have to give this up, but I don't really want to. And then gradually we realise, I need to give this up because this is holding me back. But when we give it up, Krishna says, whatever we give up for him will qualify us for eternal life. We're not going to lose it. The more we give up for Krishna, the more we become qualified for that eternal association with the Lord. So don't be too hard on yourself if you feel that you've got some material desires and you're motivated. That's okay, just approach Krishna anyway. But if you can try to utilize these desires in such a way that it's can be used in Krishna's service, so therefore this devotional service is such a blessing. Practically everything that we want to do, I think everything we have, we can engage it in such a way as is beneficial for us and for others. Okay, we'll just stop there. Anyone get any questions or comments? Nothing online? Okay. Skam Guru Govind ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Guru Premanande, Gaura Bhaktavrinda ki. You have trouble with the internet again?